Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the American Gods After Show on AfterBuzz TV. It's Sunday night. We just watched some intense ass stuff. This episode was awesome. Can't wait to keep talking about it, guys. Hang out with us. We're gonna break the whole thing down for you right now. We'll see you in just 1 second.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
There was some ass.
Intense ass.
Yeah.
Intense ass stuff.
Very true. Intense ass
Oh yeah.
This is quite the episode of television.
Woo!
We live in a world now where this is like not even trending on Twitter. Like that can just play on TV and that is not even trending. Like 15, 20 years ago, that would have been like front page groundbreaking stuff.
Do you think it will be tomorrow? Do you think it's just everyone's sleeping right now?
I read an article a week ago about that scene and
Yeah.
about how this was a groundbreaking scene for television.
Yeah.
And I read it and it was like a clickbait feature on some smaller publication. That was the extent of what I heard of it.
Oh.
Interesting.
Which
I'm
is
curious
very-
to see if as people watch this on their DVRs
Yeah.
Right.
and their like streaming services and stuff, if people are going to start talking about it a little later on.
Yeah.
Yes, could be. So, guys, this is the American Gods After Show at AfterBuzz TV. We do after shows here for every great show on television.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Ben Bateman. You guys can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and Instagram. And I have a wonderful panel starting with Kari Lane.
What's up, guys? My name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's KaridLane. And we do have the chat live, so if you... I can do it on my fancy device, my technology. So if you are watching this live, feel free to join in the chat. If you're watching it later, comment down below. And I love how so many of you have done that so far, which is great.
Yeah, we love to hear from you. And
We got the child next.
I am Dave Child. You can find me at mrdavechild or davechild.com. My name is Dave Child. Welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk about
Does
this
anybody just
episode.
call you as a nickname just the child?
Not yet.
It's a good nickname.
But that is a good nickname. Everyone would
The
try to say,
Child.
like, growing up, everyone was like, ooh, how about man-child? Ooh.
Right.
Which I was like, dude, I'm 10. Why call me man-child? Yeah, I'm just a child.
I think the child is a great
The
name.
child's
The
not
child.
bad.
Yeah.
I actually always wanted to answer the phone with, like, go for the child.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
This
never
is
have to
Chad.
guess. Yeah.
So, Kari Lane, I wanted to apologize because on our show here before I introduced you as Kari Lane, and I did that live.
Oh, boo.
And I noticed, and you took it in stride. You didn't correct me, but you noticed it, I'm sure. As anybody
Good for
who-
you.
You know, it's all right.
I have to apologize for that. So I corrected myself this time.
Oh,
I
well,
said,
thank you.
It is Kari D. Lane.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'm glad I got it.
Which is funny because I interviewed, there's a voice actress named Kari Walgren, and I
Right.
was like, we spell our names the same way, so it's the fun, like, we both have had the opposite.
Right.
So it's
Right.
Kari, even though it's spelled K-A. I know that can be confusing for some
Right.
people.
Ah.
It's K-A-R-I, which is more of a European way to spell it. So thus some
All right.
confusion.
Cool.
Interesting.
It's all right.
Very good.
I don't think I'd do that to you on air. I
Yeah.
might be after.
Well, you didn't even do it after.
Yeah.
So,
That's why
It's
you
like,
were beaten
fine,
up
it's all
after.
right.
So, guys, we have a lot to talk about tonight. And
Yes.
this episode is the third episode of season 1, titled Head Full of Snow. They're beginning to fill in the blanks
That's almost a pun.
a little bit. Head
If
full of
you
snow?
go with the dirty, no.
I don't know. I don't think so. Kinda. But I don't think
No, he
so.
said it, and then I'm like, no, I don't
Fill in
think
the
that's what
blanks.
they're going for. I just had a dirty pun mind with that. I'm
Yeah.
like, well,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I do have to say so the opening of it, we're getting kind of used to a sort of structure in these episodes, which
Abstract,
Yeah.
cold open.
which is kind of nice because
Yeah.
it is such a
it's
weird
a good way to set it up.
abstract show.
Yep.
It's good to have a little bit of structure. And also, this is such a faithful adaptation of the book. It's kind of scary.
Is that how the book kind of goes? Of it goes from the regular narrative to these random stories and then kind of comes back?
You know what? I don't remember, but I just remember these scenes very distinctly. It's
Okay.
like as soon as they mention them, I'm like brought back to
Right.
the book right
Okay.
away. Monis is our kind of expert on the book, and
Right.
he's not here this week, unfortunately. But I remember reading the book. You're in the process of reading
I just
it,
got
right?
it. I haven't had a chance to really
Okay,
sit
cool.
with it.
But the opening is on Anubis coming to a woman who had just died.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep.
I read in an interview this was actually potentially going to be the first scene of the whole series.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which I think they initially thought about doing that because it is kind of a more gradual and very cinematic
Yes.
introduction to the whole show. And also something I think most viewers are going to kind of recognize. It's like, oh, it's death. Even if you don't understand who Anubis is, who's an Egyptian god portrayed with the jackal head.
Yeah. I feel that's a relatively...
Yeah, it's pretty widely known.
well-known-ish, yeah.
Yeah, but,
It's not too obscure.
Yeah, some people don't know they're Egyptian.
Well, then they go into and they say Egypt, so they kind of spell it out for you in case you were confused.
This episode was actually a bit more hand-holding in a lot of ways, which was kind of nice.
So with that scene having not been the first one, if you imagine that scene being the first one, this is one thing I thought of, and that's that. So there's a lot of really cool elements in that scene, cinematically, and just sort of the concept of death and that she's looking at her own body. But they didn't do any of the stuff, the hokey stuff, where like she tries to touch her body and her hand goes through it. No. She's able to just readjust her body.
She fixed her clothes of like, my family's coming to see me. I want to, nothing too scandalous or whatever.
There was a lot in that moment that I liked, right? I liked that he looks at her and he says, he gives her a bit into the future of this is the name of your son. Yeah. It kind of reminded me a little bit of, do you guys remember that scene in Minority Report when he's sitting there with, he's sitting there in the house with the precog, and she's like, there's so much love in this house. She starts telling Tom Cruise the story of what his son would have done had he was still alive. Cool. And she's kind of going through it, and he's just engaged, and it's about 30 seconds to a minute. It's a really touching scene in the movie, and it reminded me a lot of that, just sort of this like, you won't ever get to see this, but this is the happy version of the life you're never going to see, kind of a thing.
It kind of helps give some closure too, because then she doesn't leave knowing what happens to her family. I like the mixing of religions, because she's like, this is a Muslim household and you're an Egyptian god. What's going on?
Yeah, and you also got a sense of maybe at the end, because he was a very kind god in this sense, and he really helped her through and up to the to choose the door. And he chose the door, but at the very last second, she turns around and she's like, maybe I shouldn't do this, because maybe I should be with the other god, so I could see
her grandma, I guess,
and then the cat pushes her through.
Right.
Which, the cat is a very holy symbol in the Egyptian religion of the god Bast. So that cat might have actually been Bast or might not have been, but there's...
The cat was in her home, though, because she did talk to it. Because then I wondered if it really was there, because I'm like, she chatted with it, though.
Yeah,
I think that was her cat.
Yeah.
She was up on the stool, she dies falling off the stool. That's what we grabbed.
Yeah.
So the other thing,
I thought that too. I'm like, she's gonna die falling off the stool.
Well, they were suggesting it, so yeah. One thing I thought also was that was really interesting is, had this been the first scene in the show, and they really wanted us to kind of go on this journey of, okay, you're in the real world, and now we're gonna take you into this other world.
Oh, the staircase was gorgeous.
The staircase was so cool,
so good, and the blue was very like scarab blue.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
If they were going to take us there, the one difference, and I made note of this because I think that one thing this show has been really great at is not just like confusion, familiar note that the audience can relate to, and the familiar note the audience would have had to relate to at that moment, if that was the first scene in the show, is that Death would not have been able to send her through a door. He would have had to say something like, "This is your choice." It would have been something like that, where like the audience is like, "Oh, so the door you go through is going to represent our journey in this show," as opposed to otherwise he would be a character that we would want to see again, that we would need to follow. Like it'd be too important of a character having made that decision.
I like it wasn't the first scene.
Yes,
yeah,
it would have been too straightforward.
Yeah, and you really want to start off especially this season, with a scene of war and a sense of war and violence.
That first scene is awesome.
So good.
It's so cool.
Also, I guess this happened maybe this happened in the previous episode with Anansi, but I really recognized in this episode there's a different aspect ratio for these opening scenes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it has a wider angle. And it has a wider aspect ratio, and the bars on the top and the bottom.
Oh, it's like widescreen.
Which I guess did happen in the first episode, because we actually see his arm go through those bars. Yeah. But the rest of the show doesn't have those bars. It has a different aspect ratio.
Interesting.
It's something I haven't thought of in a long time.
I don't think I had really noticed, but
you remember like how VHS tapes and DVDs, widescreen is always the one you'd want to watch?
Right.
Is that not a thing that exists anymore? Like the title widescreen is never on.
No, you can get full screens. There's still DVDs out there that do full screen.
Yeah, because I think people are learning that full screen is terrible.
But when
you should never have full screen because all they do is actually chop off the sides.
So when you like stream a movie from Amazon, it's just always widescreen now?
Yeah, for the most part.
I don't even think about it anymore. I just
I think
you don't usually have to choose between
it's only on like a DVD that you would worry about it being full
Yeah,
screen.
it's occasionally.
Especially if it's a little older too.
Right.
Like the ones where you had to check on it, you're like, wait.
Is this the widescreen DVD?
Yep.
Or the standard DVD?
Oh, RJ Martinez. That's why I don't like cats. That cat the cat pushing the lady.
Right. I also, what I was going to mention about the cat pushing the lady is I think that was also the sense of the Anubis needing her to go through with it because it probably helps him.
Yeah.
It probably helps his, like, the way that we have Belquist, like, sucking up people through her vagina. He needs to be the one ushering
Collecting
them
the souls.
Who do you think, guys, if this had been the love child of two film directors, who would what would the series be? I was thinking this would be like David Cronenberg and the Coen brothers or something like that.
Right.
Or like I think it's like Coen brothers meets like David Lynch or something.
It really reminds me of the director who did The Fall.
Okay.
And also like The Cell.
Oh, yeah.
I forget what his name is. But it reminds me of that director a lot.
The Cell. Isn't that Cronenberg?
No, that's not Cronenberg.
Okay.
No.
But I like The Fall.
Yeah, The Fall is very
It's
cinematic.
visually and sometimes you don't quite know it's real, so it's great.
It's a magical realism feel to it.
Because I was thinking about some of the lines in this opening scene. Like she says, "Asaf with his music," and then she's like, "All 8 of my children, smart as a table." Like, what does the phrase "smart as a table" mean? That just was like, this is a Coen Brothers script now. Like, what is this?
Well, I feel like that's maybe straight out of Neil Gaiman's book.
Maybe,
because it also feels like a very Neil Gaiman line because he's very good at writing and also it just feels so Bryan Fullery. Yeah. Like for me, coming from Hannibal fandom and all sorts of other Bryan Fuller.
I love the other line. She says, 68 years, not much for America. More than my teeth ever hoped for, or ever prayed for. Yeah, not much for America. That's interesting.
It's kind of nice.
All right, so that's where we open, though. And guys, before we just get into the rest of the episode, remind everybody we provide free content here on AfterBuzz TV. We'd like to continue to provide free content forever and always. And if you give us a rating or a review on iTunes, it helps us stay high in the standings. So please go do that. Just one last reminder. So we jump from there into the next scene, which is Shadow waking up and having this. Well, kind of waking up.
I was like, he's had a lot of kind of pseudo-awake stuff on this episode.
Yeah, I think what's happening with Shadow, especially in this episode, is he's on the edge of dream and reality, and he kind of sees them both happening at the same time. So
I was going to ask you, because both of you, we were talking about, like, why is he different? And then I was looking at something. So technically he could be an oracle and a seer in terms of he gets visions and he talks to gods.
Yeah.
True.
Because we haven't really seen the gods, like, someone talk to them too much. I mean, yes, Wednesday's interacted with people, but not... Like, he's talking to all of these different people, and they all can recognize he's kind of different. So it's interesting of, like, if they'd want him in the sense of, like, 1, you can communicate with him, and 2, he does have visions. We don't necessarily know if they're future visions of the future yet, per se.
Well, it also has a great scene with Zoira, the sister who was sleeping. Yeah, and
well, there you go. That's a talking to a god one.
Yeah, and that's when he's talking to her. She has a great line that I think sums up the journey Shadow's going through, which is you're coming from believing in nothing to believing in everything.
Yeah.
So, or seeing nothing to seeing everything.
Yes.
And that was like, I think that is like what Shadow's going through because he's getting introduced to this whole other world, and you get the feeling he's coming from a very not religious kind of point of view.
I loved that scene, and she kisses him, and she says, "Kissing is disgusting, but in a nice way, with cheese or a brandy."
I like that.
That's great. That's such a good line.
Great line. Yeah, she had a lot of really great lines. She said, "You believe in nothing, so you are nothing, but you're going from nothing to everything."
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, there was a lot in there that I was like, this is starting to illustrate who he is a little bit.
And the one of the biggest scenes from the book that I really remember before rewatching this is when she reaches up and plucks the moon out of the sky.
That's beautiful.
I assumed that was probably directly from the book.
Yeah, that was such like, it was a beautiful moment and gives him his coin, which is, it's another coin for Shadow Moon.
Yeah.
And it's also of the moon.
Which one was the sun? Because I didn't think the leprechaun's gift was the sun. Because she's like, you have the gift of, you have the sun as well.
No.
Yeah, she does say that. She says right here, she says...
Yeah, but that's not exactly... She's not talking about the leprechaun's coin.
I don't think so. But I was wondering, what is the gift that he had that was from the sun?
She says, you had the sun itself. I can give you the moon.
Yeah, so what was the sun?
Yeah, I don't... That's a good question. I'm not sure what she means by that, except maybe that he's coming from the world of the sun, where everything seems so obvious and clear.
Sure.
To, like, now it's the world of
I
the
thought it was
moon.
the thing that, like, someone gave him. I'm like, when did he get the sun?
I don't think so. It could be the coin itself.
Unless his girl is the sun.
Maybe.
Unless...
I got the sense it was more of like seeing things through the light of day.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure.
I like that.
At night, things are a bit more mysterious.
One other thing with her that I noticed that I really like, so clearly she was cast as a very, very beautiful girl. She's gorgeous. But I also noticed that she was cast as a beautiful girl that's not a twig. I noticed like the shape of her in the dress. She was like curvy.
Very curvy, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's interesting because she's part of like this like sort of old world family. I was like, that has to be intentional. It's got to be intentional because the look of her face was so like modern day beautiful model. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Also, the way they dressed her too was very like flowing dress that wasn't exactly form fitting, and I think that maybe is why she seems more like a curvy woman too, because it's not really tight.
She had the Empire style. It's tight on the bust and then it's flowy.
And then flowy.
So maybe, you know what, she might be actually a twig in real life. And
She might be a twig.
She might have been
was well,
costumed
like-
to look.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She looked good.
Could be somewhere, yeah. But I just thought that was like just like a very interesting single detail. So anyway, yeah, that's the... Go
Well, a
ahead.
few people in the chat are saying that maybe the gold coin from Mad Sweeney is the sun.
Is the sun.
Okay.
But then I'm not sure how you say it, but Gotchin said the sun is something that I wish I could talk about with spoilers, maybe, or it's the coin.
Right.
Okay, yeah, no, if it's something we don't know yet, totally, that's fine. Let's not get into it.
Yeah,
I was just,
it feels like it might be something I'm forgetting about. But
Well, it's those moments where you're like, did I miss something, or is this something will get revealed later? Because I don't mind if it's revealed later. I just want to be like, we didn't miss it, right?
Everything that show's abstract, so I don't think we can kick ourselves for missing anything. So then the next scene, you have Wednesday hanging out with not Zoriah. Zora. Listen, we're gonna mess up all these names. All of the names.
You can keep correcting us if you want, but it's Zorya. I know that much because I wrote that down.
So yes, you have
all the sisters Zora,
and a conversation, and she says at one point to him, "You will fail, and they will win."
Yeah.
There's some great lines here too. Do you remember being young? And she says, "Barely."
Let me remind you.
Kisses her.
And also
They're
she's
so sweet.
Yeah, they're really nice together. They have great chemistry.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also I like how Wednesday says, "Well, that's just my fortune for today."
Yes.
Yeah.
Love that
That was
line.
a cool line.
So I could lose today, but I might win.
Yeah. And
The rest.
it's also great seeing an elderly, essentially, couple on television being cute and romantic and not like grandma and grandpas per se. Because those we sometimes get like the grandma and grandpa couple who are just like, oh, yay, cutesy.
Yeah.
But this was like an older couple that was
Even
still
though Mr.
very...
Wednesday isn't quite...
No, he's not as old, but it's
Candace
not,
Bergen.
they're not like young 20s, 30s, or even 40s couple. But to show them being like, he even makes like, did you ever have a problem being wet joke that I was like, oh, we getting all kinds of jokes.
Yeah.
But how many times do you see an older couple say jokes like that on TV? So I was like, yes, keep it coming.
Well, I mentioned this last week,
Yeah.
but I want to say it again, that Candace Bergen, I'm not saying her name right, but she spent the entire time on set joking about getting gangbanged by the crew and hitting on
Shane?
Yeah.
That's excellent.
So it was great. That's
It's fantastic.
she was perfect casting for that role.
Something interesting that I think about a lot with this show, and it's shows like this that are intentionally very abstract and are supposed to have this sort of sweeping, like kind of confusing. It's kind of like when you listen to the radio and you hear like a really good line in a pop song, and the song sounds really nice and it's a catchy song, but there's one line in the verse that everybody hears and they're like, oh, that's what the song's about. Like, this is really nice. I like this song. But like they don't really, they couldn't tell you what the lyrics and the rest of the song are about or what the song's even written about. They just know this one line in the chorus that they hear over and over again, and it feels good. It's kind of what any of the linear scenes in this episode feel like, or this show, like that conversation where he's like, do you remember what it's like to be young? And she's like, barely. He's like, let me remind you, they kiss. Like, oh, that's a really nice thing that has absolutely nothing to do with any of the weird, abstract, spacey stuff. Like, maybe you could relate it back if you wanted, but it's like, stands on its own as this little vignette that is memorable in a much simpler, much more surface level way than most of what we watch in this show.
Yeah, and one of the things that I like about the show is I feel like when you're doing an adaptation of this book, and why this seems like an unadaptable book, is because you just want to do the linear like story.
Right.
You just want to have those chapters because it is a book, and now that I'm remembering, it is a book that goes in between linear chapters to just these vignettes.
Yeah.
That following the gods and stuff.
Well, they also changed up on this one because before the first 2 episodes, it was like intro vignette, regular story with maybe some stuff. This one was like, here's so much more. And then also the first 2 had like the more grandiose group. So it's interesting that we focus now on the one individual.
Right.
Because it was the Vikings with like a bunch of people, it was the slaves with a bunch of people, and then we're like,
but that was really about the first one was about Odin, even though we never see Odin.
But like even how you introduce him, it was interesting to change it again. Like we didn't get another big group of people doing something. We got our one person.
Yeah, and we also don't see them coming to America.
Yeah, she was already here
this time around,
Yeah.
and it was it was a lot like the
Cloris Leachman.
Cloris Leachman. Thank you. I'm mixing her up with another older actress who's also great.
Candice Bergen.
Yeah. And this still had the formula of intro. The intro was about one god, then it was linear, and then it went to like another god. And what I liked about this episode rather than last week's episode was we went back to Belquist, and which was nice, and we got to see her eat up a few more guys and women.
Yeah.
Which was fun, but at the same time I really wanted to meet the other gods of the world, and I'm happy that this time we got to meet the Jinn.
Yeah.
And we got to go move to another.
Well, we had met him already.
We did meet
in the
him
restaurant.
briefly.
He was sitting down with Wednesday. He's the guy that gets up from having lunch with Wednesday.
And you see a little fire in his eyes.
I
and
remember
just
that.
a
I think I had forgotten that.
Yeah. For just a minute.
I made sure to mention that when in that episode because I knew he was going to come back, and it was a great way of introducing the Jinn and also getting a sense of now we don't need to see the Jinn necessarily talk to Wednesday because we know he already did that off.
Yeah. So quickly before we get into the Jinn part of the episode, I do want to just finish up the Chernobog versus Shadow Moon checkers here. And so basically Shadow uses his skill as a hustler con artist to convince Chernobog to play him again to save his own life.
And now he's got confidence, and I think a lot of that confidence is coming from the dream and the interaction with the other sister.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just sort of there's definitely a little bit of a fun, recognizable characteristic with Shadow Moon, which is that he's essentially a man with nothing to lose a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's fun to watch him go down this path and learning about himself and who he is, because it seems like his alternative is like, I don't care. I was just in prison. I lost my wife. I don't even know what the hell's real or not. I might be dead anyway. Like he seems like he's kind of in that world.
Yeah, and
well, also I think he was just thrown off so much by the initial interaction and just the like being thrown off your game, and he's like, I don't know, like he totally lost it. But this time he's like, I don't care what you're saying.
Yeah.
None of your weird singing's gonna throw me off. I'm gonna throw you off, old man.
We got no more Peter Stormare songs. That's the only thing that felt incomplete about this episode.
Yeah, and also he's going into this with a literal totem too.
Yes.
I think he actually has protection
Yeah.
when it comes to this game now.
Definitely. So yes, so Chernobog is now going to go with Voltan to Wisconsin. That wasn't very good.
Sorry.
That's all right.
A for effort.
Better than mine, yeah.
And so so that's the next step in that journey. And then we get Mad Sweeney on the road, which is a great. This is a brief scene, but a great scene.
Before we go off of that, I do want to make note what the terms of that agreement was.
Yes.
Which one?
That of the agreement with Chernobog.
Oh yes.
About how if he wins that game, that means he gets he's joining the fight with Wednesday, but Shadow still gets killed.
Yeah, he said that you'll do it after.
Yeah, after the whole thing.
Do any of us really believe that's going to happen?
No.
Well, it's important to note that that's what the terms of agreement are.
Yeah.
Because he owes him his life. That's the point.
So it's not. It's what I like about that is it's not an agreement that totally just dismisses the original agreement. It just puts a bit more time.
But Chernobog wanted to go with them because he would never have agreed to another. He wouldn't have gotten conned into it if he actually didn't want to go. I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I was watching and I was thinking, why is he playing him again? And I was like, the only reason he's playing him again is because there's some part of him that actually wants to go.
I don't think so. I think he's playing him again because he hurt his pride.
Oh yeah, no, he totally dug at that man's confidence. He's like, I don't think you could do this. He's like, oh no, this is on.
Yeah. So I think it's because of pride, and also the way of gods, is to make bets and then also stand by those bets.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. So yes, this next scene we get first Mad Sweeney waking up in a bathroom stall,
Right.
which is excellent. It's fantastic, and I love his total confidence. The gun will jam, maybe it'll backfire and blow 2 of your fingers off. Just doesn't care. Picks up the stale beer. I wanted there to be like a cigarette floating in it. That's what I was hoping they were going to show me. And then he goes for it and he gets blown up. And he's just
The
like
piece in his cheek, man. Oh,
he's a great character.
Yep.
And they're doing a really good job with him so far.
And they're also showing that now his luck has turned.
Yep.
He gets picked up by Scott Thompson, who I was happy to see him in this episode, even if it was briefly. He's was from Hannibal alum.
Okay.
He was a character on Hannibal. And also he's a Kids in the Hall.
Gotcha.
Which is what he's probably most famous for. So it's good to see him in these serious roles that Bryan Fuller keeps putting him in, which is really nice. And even though he doesn't withstand the luck that Mad Sweeney's going through right now.
He does not. I love a couple of his lines were just excellent. I'm not a drunk. Oh, you're not. He's like, you can lean back, and he's like, before he leans back, don't try to touch my knob.
Yeah.
Oh, that conversation, no, like as soon as that car pulled up, I looked over, I was like, oh, I want to trust this person, but then when he does the AA thing, I'm like, all right, I guess. But I still was so skeptical.
I forgot about that character so much. I'm like, oh, is this another god I forgot about? Is he playing like another trickster god of some sort?
Yeah.
And then as soon as it gets Final Destination.
Yeah.
And of course, because it is a Bryan Fuller Michael Green show, we just get the graphic pipe through the face.
Oh, it's how Final Destination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you
Because
get
that was the highway scene on that one.
yeah,
Ugh.
and he gets and the blood like coming out of the pipe.
Oh, in the face.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah,
Excellent stuff.
What at least was quick. One was like that.
quickish. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
So yes, so Sweeney then looks for the coin and he can't find the coin.
Right.
So there's a coin missing, which will come back later in the episode.
Yes.
Well, then
and
Shadow
he-
tells him where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, he finds out that the coin is in Laura Moon's, or was put on Laura Moon's grave.
Which we all
Did
called
not
at the
stay
time
there,
something
yeah.
relevant was going to happen
Yes.
because
Yeah.
you see it sucked down.
Yeah.
I love that one scene where he takes out all the coins from his
Yes.
pocket, though, and he's like, oh, that coin. Oh, no.
Of course.
I loved all the
Ooh.
coins falling out, and he's like, shit.
Yeah. Shit.
That other one.
So we will get to
Yep.
just the bank robbery, but let's get into the most
gem.
controversial scene of the episode for sure.
I don't know
yeah.
if it was that controversial.
Oh, I mean, I'm not saying controversial in any negative
Most
way.
Yeah.
scandalous for the episode?
I would say
This is the thing.
I would just call it a polarizing for television scene.
Sure.
Yes, it's different for
Yes.
Controversial
television.
would be, I think, a fair phrase.
Yes, for television, for sure.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be, because what I really liked about that scene was we could talk about also how Salim is the name of the main character. I don't think we ever really hear his name, but that's his character from the book. Salim is the guy who's the salesman who's really trying to like sell his wares,
Yep.
hates his life, is really stuck in like meeting up with someone named Mr. Blanding, which is the perfect name for a boring office person.
Totally.
And it keeps getting pushed. You see him ignored by all these taxis, and then picked up by this one taxi who's driven by a djinn.
Does not grant wishes.
That does not grant wishes. We do one thing that's like I said earlier. One thing that's nice about this episode is there is some hand holding with like explaining a lot of these characters. Like you get Anubis is pretty well explained, and so is the djinn, which is he says they're known as genies and they're created. They're characters who
From fire.
yeah, they're
Children of fire.
figures of fire rather than
Yeah.
made from clay
Yes.
or angels like.
It's weird because they keep giving us
great.
these little vignettes to introduce characters,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sort of like, it feels like the show is just a series of these vignettes. So the idea that there's actually going to be a war and a bunch of these gods all together at one time, and we're going to get like sort of like Avengers-y sort of thing is like just I can't even imagine anything even remotely resembling that in this show.
It's gonna be huge. If and when they get to it, it's gonna be like it's gonna be amazing, and that's a good way of building this up because we are following the story, and then we're meeting these individual characters. So
the scene basically he get in the cab together and he realizes that he's a djinn halfway through, and it's one of the things that I liked about this is that I was trying to draw the distinction in the scene between, okay, is this a god a djinn who is driving a cab because they are painting this picture of all of these gods living in the real world where they're just having to do what they have to do. They don't have infinite power. They can't just do whatever they want.
They're kind of forgotten.
They're kind of forgotten. They have to have jobs and they have to live and they have to eat and they exist. So is he just driving a cab because that's what he's able to do? Or is he driving a cab because he's in this situation to grant a wish to this character and that he's supposed to be there and he's placed there for the sake of this character?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think he's driving a cab so that he can maybe find people to help fulfill his abilities.
Sure. He's keeping his eyes open.
Well, it'd be a quick way to meet people. Constantly.
And also one thing that's interesting about jinns is they are part of the Muslim religion. It's not. They're like angels.
Gotcha.
And there's demons, but they're demons, but they're good, bad, and neutral. So they're kind of they range in what they can do. So it's interesting that he's not really a god. He's kind of more of a figure.
He's an immortal
mythical figure, yeah. But I guess it's the same with like Chernobog, who's known as like kind of like an evil god or mythical figure himself. Right. So, anyways, they have this kind of wonderful interaction and.
Well, even that nice, slowly testing the waters of like, is this
the setup was really nice,
Because the first hand on the shoulder, I'm like, that could be anybody. You're like, all right.
That could just be like, I'm here for you, buddy.
Yeah.
And I also wasn't sure if it was like a transference of power thing.
I was wondering that too. I'm like, oh, is this like you touch the lamp or something?
And then the second time I was like, okay, now this is going down a romantic road.
Yeah.
Well, even the second time I was all solidarity thing. We're both struggling in another country. Yeah. And then it was like, then the jinn touching his hand. I'm like, oh, okay, we're going that way.
Yeah. And it was kind of nice too because you also... It's kind of why Moonlight is a powerful movie. Yeah. Because there's in both of these cultures, in the Muslim culture, it's not really seen as very, it's a struggle for people who are gay to be in that religion and to express themselves. So it is like very testing the waters, and he's already testing someone who is an other. Yeah. And they're kind of talking about being others themselves.
Right.
I like this in the chat. Katie Snow says, with all the full frontal scenes acceptable for women, it's nice that Starz is breaking out male nudity. 100% I agree. And this wasn't some rough male rape scene in a nasty jail. It was loving. It was very artistic. Totally agree. It was nice to see. Because you brought it up right before, like the idea that it's just essentially if they had shot a heterosexual couple scene, it just is too. It's a homosexual scene shot the same way.
It's not. It's unusual for us because we don't usually see a gay sex scene like this. We usually see that it's as graphic as a lot of the sex scenes we've seen on Starz, on HBO. It's the same thing from Outlander or something. It has the same sort of feel of like
I would call
intense.
this on the high end of graphic for any scene though. I think
I don't know. Is it as graphic as the Belquist?
Well, I think that this show, I'm not saying that.
Well, they have a brief I mean, it's a little different too because I mean, let's be honest. For male nudity, you see their tops. It's not nudity, who cares? Yeah. And even like the side profile of the butt, you're like, well, I don't really see anything. Right. And you only get the initial full frontal, and then but you didn't see the other guy. Yeah. And like that was conveniently not, even when he got up from the bed, the blanket was like right by his butt crack. So
I just like the question I sort of have is like I'm all for just like artistic freedom as a show. Just do what you want to do. Like I'm into it. I'm enjoying watching the show. At the same time, I don't know that the intense nudity from Bilquis or the intense full frontal nudity here is really necessary. I'm sort of like watching the scene. I was a little bit like,
but do you think
glad you guys can do it, but is it necessary?
How many shows are out that have random female nudity and just people go, is this necessary?
Oh, look, I am completely with you. I'm just saying like on the whole, there's a point that you reach where it's like we're on television, we can do what we want because we have the freedom to do what we want. Yeah. How much of it is necessary? Like, how much does that scene lose if
Lots.
And the Bilquis scene, if you don't go full frontal with Bilquis, if you don't just show the dick, do either one of them suffer? Are the scenes less impactful, do you think?
Yes. Her, I think it should be because it's like she's kind of a goddess of love, so I think the body is very important. Sure. Then with the men, it's a state of vulnerability of like, I am being exposed literally. True. So, and it's brief. And it wasn't an erect penis, which we saw in another scene.
We didn't see the stunt cock. Well, he drops the towel, which I thought that's a good point. Because that's an intimate moment when he drops the towel.
Yeah.
That it isn't like a sexually charged moment. It's literally just like
intimate. Intimate is important.
Yeah.
And I think intimate is the key to why this is an important scene.
Yeah.
Because this scene is an extended intimate moment, and if it felt graphic and if it felt intense, it was because it was extremely intimate. And we don't usually see, especially gay sex scenes, be intimate. They're usually brief or implied.
You know what? Actually, I think the question I asked would have been different, because honestly, if he drops the towel and you cut away and you just see the reaction shot, it turns it into a cheap scene of like, whoa, what's he seeing? How big is it? It's much more like it does actually take take away from it.
Well, they don't dwell on it either. It's just one of those.
It's
there
there.
It is. And moving on.
There's no close up. There's no
I agree.
seeing it get hard or anything. It's just there.
A lot of the chat room, I like that you guys are all chiming in. That most people are saying it was Sarqual. I honestly can't remember a sweeter film sex scene off the top of my head. And there's a lot of you have also said other things of just like how many other shows, like it's so nice to see a homosexual couple shot in just such a like intimate, romantic, and not like just lustful. And it was the moment of even his line too of like, I wish you could see what I see right now.
Yeah.
You're just like,
and you felt like he was really helping the djinn rather than the djinn helping him.
Yes,
which
he's like, let me help you.
Yeah, and that's a recurring theme in a lot of Neil Gaiman's writings, especially with genies. There's actually a short story about, called October Story about a genie who's just trying to help a woman, and it ends up being the woman who helps the genie. So it's kind of, it's something that he likes to explore, especially with these wish giving people.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's also important that in the show, we've been meeting a lot of trickster gods and gods that are just in it for themselves.
Yes.
And it's nice to see, in this one episode, we see two gods from two Middle Eastern religions.
Wait, two gods?
We have Anubis and we have
I'm
Jinn.
sorry, yes.
Jinn is like a, kind of a god.
Okay.
So we have these two gods from both Middle Eastern religions, which is seen very kind of controversial these days.
Sure.
And they're both helping the people that they're with rather than using them to like fuel themselves.
And even with Jinn, there's a lot of mythology of them, messing up your wishes and stuff and ruining. But he helps this person's life, which a couple people mentioned, like how he didn't grant a wish, but he gave the guy a new life. He gave him what he wanted. Of like, he has a job now. He has like a new chance to do something. So, and essentially freed the Jinn in a way of like, you can move on to the next thing.
There's scene after scene in this show. They do feel like they could just be a digital short. You could really just see this. You could just see it and you'd be like, oh, this is an interesting thing somebody shot. Have no relationship to anything else.
A digital short. It sounds like it's an SNL sketch.
Lazy Sunday.
What a funny digital short this Jinn love scene will be.
Sandberg did a great job with that Anubis scene.
Ooh boy, Sudeikis and Sandberg together.
So anyway, but yes, I think, and because what I liked was the button at the end of the scene. Also, when he puts the sweater on, he puts on the glasses. And
one thing that's kind of nice is this is how an exact adaptation of the book it is in such a strange way. I looked up that scene in the book. Yeah. And there's a description of when Salim picks up the driver's license and sees that it's not a picture of him, it's not a picture of Salim, but it's also not a picture of the Jinn. Right. So it's just you could steal this identity the same way the Jinn stole the identity. Okay. And he lets that happen. Yeah.
Agreed. All right, so we move on to this bank robbery setup scene. So first you have Shadow talking with Wednesday, kind of about the setup, and Shadow seemingly wants nothing to do with it. He's still seeing it. He goes between seeing the world in this very, very like myopic, like this is just still at surface level, to seeing it as like, oh, I'm actually dreaming, and this is where we get this idea of snow and him creating snow.
Marshmallows.
That Wednesday then references later. Later in the episode, Wednesday says, if you...
I do love marshmallows. Yeah. Great.
He says, if you believe that you can manifest snow, then you believe you have amazing powers the rest of your life. Or something like that. There's some line to that effect.
Yeah. Well, it's the believing it, I think.
Yeah. The idea of belief is very
a couple people in the chat were saying that didn't really happen in the book of the marshmallows.
Oh, the marshmallows didn't happen? Yeah, they might have added the marshmallows.
It was a great visual.
The car driving off of the marshmallow in outer space.
Well, it was like a good, visual association moment of like, it'll help you think of snow.
Oh, he didn't even reference, by the way, just talking about weird space stuff, that the Jin sex scene does turn into a weird, just the same.
That was interesting.
Yeah, but given.
The ethereal Anubis, like astral vagina, like we got like a little bit more of the same.
Yeah, we got flames being ejaculated into a human's body.
Turn the black light on and seeing them having sex in a desert. It was like, all right, we needed this to cap the scene.
I mean, just so you know how great it was, I suppose.
But yeah, so this conversation starts happening. Wednesday is selling Shadow on this idea of the scam they're going to pull.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love the scam.
I like that it wasn't what I expected of like bank robbery. I'm like, oh great, what are they gonna do? And then I'm like, oh.
I do want to.
But I do not believe anybody would actually do that. Would you?
Of course
really?
they would. Of course they would.
No.
No, of course they would.
Oh please, no! Come on, you really?
Yes, the good con is the one that seems like it's just. It seems if you set up like an older man with goofy earmuffs in front of a bank, you close down everything, and if he's able to talk his way into it. Is the bank closed at this point too? The bank is closed. It's after hours. So you're taking your money. The idea of an after hours deposit is you take your money, you deposit it, so it's not at the store anymore.
Yes.
And he's basically saying, listen, we had to close this down. The ATM is closed, but I'm here from the bank accepting every after hours deposit, and we'll write down exactly when you deposit it, so it's proof. Everything is set. I'm an older man in a uniform.
How often does this happen? I'd be like, no, I have never seen that. No. Coming back tomorrow.
I mean, but some people might.
He's got to look at in Shadow. He's basically effectively got the second half of the concept.
Well, the good thing about Shadow is when the cops come and check up on it, I totally believe this would happen. Except I think that...
The cop thing was good.
The couple of things you don't see is I think there would be people who wouldn't do it, and there would
I
be
would have
people that
wanted
would
to see
do it.
some people who go... Yeah, I would have wanted to see one person like.
Yeah, I guess.
I'll
but
come back
why?
to
Like, just
it's a waste of
let's
time.
Keep it going.
I know.
Yeah.
I'll just do it as I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I think I've been conned before by someone because it was just someone who needed, when I first came to LA, needed money to move their car. And I definitely went and got money for them and gave it to them, and then saw them like a week later and realized I was conned. And it's something that it happens to so many people, and it seems so obvious to a lot of people.
Right.
But if it's never happened to you before, and you accept people, and it's the middle of the country, you tend to believe that.
Sure.
I know I had it one time where I was at a gas station. I had this couple like, we gotta get our kid to the hospital. We need money for gas.
Well, that's
And I just like, and even which direction they're going, I'm like, you're not even going the right way.
Yeah,
so I was like,
but I bet you anything, you've been conned a couple of times and you don't even realize.
Possibly.
I think it happens.
Then that'd be a good con.
I think and one thing that one little adaptation I miss, and I think a lot of the readers of the book are going to agree with me on this. During this scene in the book, he has signature pink fuzzy
they're not pink.
earmuffs.
Oh, sure.
And they're not pink, and I miss them being pink because the fact that they were pink was such an odd and distinct choice, and it became very iconic of the book. So the fact that they were just big furry earmuffs was fine, but I think a lot of book readers are going to miss it. Yeah.
Do you think that, so this is just on the same subject of like the gods sort of not having immense power, that Wednesday effectively needs money, actually needs money, so they're having to pull a con for money?
Yeah.
It's odd to me though. They're gods. There should be some angle where they can just get money. Like
yeah, but they're also human.
I think some people were saying like that Wednesday. Shorty V says Wednesday is so charismatic he can convince anyone of just about anything. So I think he kind of has a power of persuasion a little bit too. So, but that's a sign of a good con man anyways, that you can just convince people to do something for you.
Yeah.
But he also is, like you said, that it's like, oh, sweet old looking man that like, oh, you're so trustworthy. And I bet the pink earmuffs would have been even funnier. Of like,
would have been even
oh yeah, sure, you.
And also, like, I guess they're gods, but they live on this plane, which means they have to exist on. They have to buy hotel rooms. They have to buy gas. They have to do that stuff.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're just kind of stuck. They can't move through the astral plane or something.
And I would love to know an actual reference for this, but Qual says Gaiman was horrified when he found out someone actually pulled off his bank heist in real life.
Oh my God.
Oh wow.
I was like, wait, is this? Can you find a news clipping? Tweet at us or an article.
That's crazy.
I'd love to.
One thing before we're getting near the time we have to wrap, but one thing I do want to mention is in the bank itself, you do see a little hint of the other gods.
Yes.
And you see it. I had to rewatch the scene to see two new gods that are actually hinted at in that. One of them we haven't met yet. And the other one we have met. We see the flash of an eye who's watching the screen, and that's Gillian Anderson's Media.
Yeah.
But there's also a profile of a man in a top hat who's watching everything on the screen. It's a reflection of the screen itself. I had to watch it twice in order to see it.
Okay, I don't think I caught that one.
Some people caught it on the Reddit forum that I was looking at. So it is there, and that's someone we haven't met yet, but I don't want to spoil that for anyone.
Okay.
So we will wrap up with those last thoughts. So Mad Sweeney shows up and effectively gets into this conversation of where's the coin, at which point Shadow states, I put it on the grave, and this results in Shadow's wife,
Laura Moon, coming back,
being alive to some degree.
Looks like it. This is the first.
She doesn't look gross come back.
No, she looks zombie.
And this is also him coming home, coming back to the hotel room, and doesn't seem like it's in a dream state. So it seems like it's reality. And also we see the empty grave, and we see the hole through.
Yeah. It burned all the way through.
Yeah.
But the question is it how did the coin give her life? But I guess that would be if we get into
the sun. Maybe the sun is the coin. The sun gives life. That's what I'm assuming.
Perhaps.
Any thoughts on Mad Sweeney, this conversation, or the conversation Shadow has in the car with Wednesday, talking about if you believe, like we were talking about, anything there we want to reference?
I mean, I think it's important that there is constant discussion about believing, faith, and the power of faith and the power of belief,
right?
And what it can do. For the first time, Shadow sees that he can manipulate something through belief. And that's Snow, even if that's maybe through Wednesday, he's able to kind of believe, and Wednesday's able to channel that into Snow.
Yeah.
So I think he's seeing the world for what it is. It's building, and we're getting towards. One thing I also want to mention before we go is Neil Gaiman has said that the way the books this has already been picked up for a second season.
Yay.
That's good news. I don't think we've shared.
Nope.
And Neil Gaiman has said that the way it's going to work through the books, no spoilers, but it's going to take 5 seasons to work through the one book.
Wow.
And he said that when someone said, do you think that makes sense? Do you think that's going to be too slow? And he said, I don't think it is, because the 4th episode really convinced me that this is the way to adapt it.
Got it.
And that's going to be next week.
Awesome.
I'm excited.
Let's get into predictions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Buzz
Right?
TV prediction.
Well, some people are saying an interesting idea that maybe Shadow is one of Mr. Wednesday's mini sons, Odin having mini sons.
Cool.
Okay.
I like that. That was an interesting idea. And I wanted to say something else because I think we talked about it briefly, but since we were not confirmed that Mr. Wednesday is Odin, because another way to say it, I think it was either the Germanic way of saying it was Woden, which is translated to Wednesday, Thor, Thursday. So
that's why he's called
Wednesday. Because at first I was like, okay, Wednesday, cool, that's a random name to choose.
That's why he says in the first episode, this is my day, because it's Woden's day.
Got
It was Woden's day, and then it kind of turned to Wednesday.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's one of those that you could kind of miss that. But
Yeah,
that
I guess
was cool
we didn't
too.
talk about that
But anyway.
because we were. Yeah.
Cool.
I think the coin gave her life.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
I think.
But the question is, can you take it back?
Yeah.
I can't wait to meet more new gods.
Yes.
And also, I'm curious about what the wolf meant, because I forget.
Yes.
I forget
feel
the
that's
wolf
important.
from the book, but I think that was another god being kind of tipping his hat at Wednesday and being, I'll be there to help fight.
Yeah. I think that the reincarnation of Laura Moon is going to prove problematic for Shadow in terms of fully adapting to this new life. I think it's going to confuse him and pull him through. I think he won't really understand how she's alive, but I think it's going to pull him back to a little bit of wanting to be in the real world. And I think it's going to throw a wrench for next week.
Also, looks like on next week's episode, we really follow Laura Moon's story from beginning to where she is now, which means I guess we're going to meet Dane Cook and his stunt penis.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, something real quick too. Somebody just brought it up, but I'm like, oh yeah, we didn't really talk about it. Is how there's many Jesuses.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
He talked about all the different Jesuses, which I was excited for because
fun.
I kind of knew that
Jesus
was going to
gonna show up
enter
this
into
week.
it.
Yeah.
But I also know in the book, Jesus is hardly in it because he wanted
Yeah.
to move past it.
Yeah.
But also, this is, I think, a new version. Someone could correct me, any book readers out there. But in the book, I don't believe that we see all these forms of Jesus. And this idea that there are many Jesuses of different forms and ethnicities is actually new to the show. So I'm excited to see all these Jesuses, and I hope we get to meet at least one or two of them.
And Wednesday explains it well. Of like a lot of people need them, and that's why there's so many.
Yeah.
I like this prediction. Kevin says the wolf is Wednesday playing with Shadow.
Yeah,
That's
I
cool.
like that.
that might also
That's
be
a
true
good
too.
one. Yeah.
Cool.
I also want to meet Wednesday's Ravens. We've yet to meet the Ravens of Wednesday. So they've been kind of flying on in the background, but I think they're going to make more of an appearance.
I want to see more gods too.
Yeah,
more gods.
I think we can trust we will see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for listening. We will be here same time. No, not same time, same place.
No, we're gonna be
moving
earlier.
up by 1 hour or 2 hours?
2. We're at
2.
9.
We're actually going to be at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and what is it Eastern? I guess midnight?
No, 11. 3?
No, it's 3 hours later.
3.
It'll be
midnight.
It'll
I
be
can't count this
midnight
late.
on the east.
Yeah,
So it'll be earlier, so maybe more people can catch us.
Yeah.
And we won't seem as tired. So it'll be great.
Thanks, guys. If you want to find me, guys, you can find me at Ben Bateman, Ben Bateman Media. My name is Ben Bateman. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter or Instagram. Where can the folks find you guys?
You can find me at mrdavechild or davechild.com. I'm not going to be here next week, but I'll be here the following week. I love all of you.
Aw,
Yeah.
yes, we love you guys. My name is Kari Lane. You can find me online at Kari D Lane. That's Karidlane. And I'm so excited about the show. The show just keeps getting more exciting. You're like, yes.
Bye,
and
guys.
as someone said, we want to see more nudity, so keep it
Yeah,
up.
more nudity. Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
See you at 9
Next week.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.